For 50 years, CTC has served the Chebeague community. Here is our story.
Lifeline of an Island. On April 15, 1975, the Chebeague Transportation Company carried its first passengers. Today, after 5 decades of service, CTC is precisely what its founders envisioned. To reach Chebeague Island, you must travel by water. The options have always been limited. In days gone by, you could arrive on one of the steamers or ferries that formerly plied the bay. In 1959, Islander Jasper Smith began operating a water taxi service for Chebeague. Aboard the Polly Lynn, a converted lobster boat, and later the Polly Lynn II, as more Chebeaguers traveled to and from the island for work, school, appointments, and shopping, convenient, year-round access to the mainland grew increasingly important. In the early 1960s, there was talk of a bridge connecting Chebeague and Little John Islands. But Maine voters in 1963 roundly rejected a bond issue for the $3 million project. Travel by water remained the only option. Several years later, a group of islanders began planning to establish regularly scheduled year-round ferry service. Society, even on Chebeague, had become more mobile. In August of 1971, the Chebeague Transportation Company was incorporated. Among the founders and directors was Cap Leonard.
Obviously, need was there because it happened. One way it got there, I think, early on, the mantra of CTC was that it would meet the needs of the users of the service, period, quotation mark. And for years, when I was associated with the company, that was the driving force of the company.
From the beginning, CTC was owned by shareholders. Becoming one was simple.
If you wanted to ride the boat, we asked you to buy a $10 share of stock. And that was a great cohesive. It brought us all together. People, almost everybody could afford $10. If not, you got on the boat anyway. It was never a big issue. But have to remember in those days, we were a pretty small community. We were compared to today. And it came together that way, and those people who felt it strongest or were invited became the officers and directors of the company. But that's what we did. We owned stock, as you know, and got that way. It was great because it was the people's company.
Islanders and summer visitors became enthusiastic investors. The CTC board was led by members of the island community. By 2014, CTC had more than 2,500 shareholders, with stock owned by multiple generations handed down like heirlooms.
It became a part of our fabric. It was like, going to the dump, which was another noble cause here on the island, if you can believe that. The CTC is part of the fabric of the members of this community.
Over the years, CTC relied upon a variety of vessels. As traffic increased, so did the need for more capacity and the ability to navigate through ice and extreme weather. More than just passengers, however, need to be carried to and from the island. Barge service to Chebeague has always been a necessity and sometimes becomes an unexpected adventure. In 1961, the Hill family attempted to barge their car to Chebeague for the summer, only to have it end up in the water, not across it. Today, CTC barges approximately 1,200 vehicles to and from the island a year.
In 1984, the CTC Board of Directors contracted to build a 52-foot steel hull ferry with room for freight and the growing number of passengers and cargo between Chebeague and Cousins Island. Her name? What else? The Islander.
It was built by Washburn and Doughty with growth in mind, and it really served us quite well, and still does, obviously. That's a great old boat.
On April 6, 1985, amid much celebration, the Islander was launched. A good portion of Chebeague traveled to the Washburn and Doughty yard in East Booth Bay to watch the big boat slide down the rails. The Islander cost $242,500 to build, financed through an industrial revenue bond. By the time she became the CDC's backup vessel in 2019, the Islander, beloved by many, had logged about 408,000 miles, almost all on the 1.7-mile passage between Chebeague and Cousins Island, and that was more than 16 times around the globe. In the early years, CTC was a tiny company, with Don Buxbaum and Lindy Smith serving as captains, and Jeanette Hamilton and Diane Calder running the office from their homes. Lindy Smith served as the CTC captain from the first days of the CTC in April of 1975 until he retired in 2006.
Most days we put in 60, 70 hours a week on the boats, and until the Coast Guard said we couldn't do that anymore, so that worked out fine. But
for Don Buxbaum, his job as CTC captain fulfilled a childhood dream.
I grew up here, right in this house was my folks' cottage, and sitting on that porch saying, when I grow up, I want to live on Chebeague and run the boat. And I said that same thing to them, and that's the way it turned out. Not only that, I ended up in the summer cottage, living in the summer cottage as I am now. Doesn't get any better than that. This is it. I mean, this is the ultimate to me.
Ask an Islander to define the role CDC plays on Chebeague, and you're likely to hear the word lifeline. That goes far beyond the role every ferry ride provides for the exchange of community news and gossip.
The most critical part of CTC is the rescue. It saved a number of people, and we could enumerate some of those folks that are alive today because of its service, but it is the principal lifeline of Chebeague Island.
Year-round transportation provided by CTC is also an economic and social lifeline for Chebeague.
Boat access is essential. We're an unbridged island, and if we didn't have a safe, reliable service, this island would just immediately become a summer place. One of the other ways that I think that CTC helps to sustain Chebeague is through its service to the rescue. And I think that is essential. And I think maybe a lot of people don't understand that CTC is available 24/7. And my parents were able to age in place here because we knew we had that kind of service. And that is really important.
It is not just older islanders who benefit from the guarantee of access to the mainland.
It's very important for kids to be able to have access to the mainland for numerous reasons. One is after-school activities and going to school for the older children, but also to have an opportunity to participate in Little League or take ballet lessons, and also to be able to be part of the bigger world.
As the island has changed over the years, CTC has been responsive to meeting those changing needs. Today, CTC handles 90% of all traffic between the mainland and Chebeague Island, making almost 4,000 scheduled trips annually.
You know, the responsibility, it's huge, right? It's getting people to work, getting people to the hospital, getting people to go shopping and back through all kinds of weather, all kinds of challenges, and trying to do it in a cost-effective manner so that people can afford to ride the ferry. So that's what we're always balancing.
In 2010, the CTC Board of Directors voted to hire a general manager to oversee the company's expanding operations. Chosen to take over the position was Carol Todd Sebastiansky, a Chebeague native who went on to a mainland career in financial services. Sebastiansky knew firsthand the importance of reliable ferry service.
there's a lot of moving parts, you know? You got the boat, you got the barge, you got the buses. So it is a full-time job, and it's its lifeline. It really is. I mean, it's really pretty amazing the way CTC has worked with the community, with the rescue, for example, the school, organizations that needed either reduced fares or free fares or some kind of help. It's amazing how much they've been able to work together. So I just can't imagine the island without a CTC, and the island is very lucky because they have such an input into how that company operates. If the state ferry system provided the transportation, if Casco Bay lines provided the transportation, you would not see all the special things that the company does.
In 2014, the long-term financial viability of CTC prompted company directors to seek nonprofit status, making CTC eligible for grants and low-interest loans. CTC's status as a for-profit company was in name only. Over the years, shareholders never sought a dividend, instead urging that any profits be reinvested in the company. But the day was coming when a new passenger vessel would be required to replace the aging Islander.
Converting CTC from a C Corp to a 501c3 nonprofit, that was one of the first priorities that the board of directors gave to me, because they had wanted to do it for years. We had about 2,500 stockholders.
If more than 5% of the shareholders demanded payment, the conversion effort would fail. The company simply couldn't afford it. Shareholders scattered all over the United States were tracked down.
We were able to get 95% of the stock donated, which, I mean, that really says it all about the island's commitment to the company.
With the strong support of the island community, the town of Chebeague, and state and federal legislators, nonprofit status was granted by the IRS later that year. The timing was propitious, for CTC was about to add a new vessel to its fleet. On July 19, 2019, Islanders flocked once again to the Washburn and Doughty Yard to christen and celebrate the launch of the newest addition to island transportation, the aptly named Independence. The 56-foot, $1.2 million ferry, with a capacity of 119 passengers, would become CTC's primary vessel, allowing the 34-year-old Islander to serve as an essential backup vessel, so travel was always guaranteed. One of the most important functions of CTC is providing transportation from Chebeague in the event of accidents, illnesses, and other emergencies.
Rescue is critical. I mean, when I was general manager, we'd have 70 or 80 rescues a year.
When an emergency alert is sounded, day or night, Chebeague EMTs respond, as does the CTC crew, which has the ferry ready for the run to Cousins Island, where an ambulance from Yarmouth awaits on the wharf.
We are able to get people off the island in an emergency easier and safer than probably, I won't say any island, but probably most, if not all, islands in Casco Bay.
I would say in the past few years, though, the rescue and the boat crew have done a much better job communicating.
The town has put in a lot of money to upgrade our radio system, and we've installed radios on the boat, so the communication is definitely much better. And we've done training with CTC so they know how to talk on the radio, and it really works well. That is one thing that you get on the island, is you get a lot of thank yous. It is nice, and it's good. That's why we do what we do, is to help out people.
This is Kendra McKinnon speaking once again, and I have firsthand knowledge experiencing the professional, personal and cohesive joining of our island rescue and CTC. One morning, my father, Kenneth Hamilton, suffered an anaphylactic shock. The rescue came quickly, the islander was ready, and a nurse who happened to be on the island, and ironically was someone my father had trained when she first joined the rescue as a newbie, literally jumped on the boat at the last minute as they took off. It was touch and go for a period of time, with the captain, Leon Hamilton, having the engine running as fast as the boat would go and the nurse administering a shot. It was a record time, and they had him on Cousins where Yarmouth Rescue was waiting, and later told us that between the speed and the shot, they had saved my father's life.
The COVID epidemic hit CTC hard. In 2020, ferry ridership fell by more than 50%. Bus ridership dropped 68%, and the company's revenues plunged by 52%. New boarding and travel restrictions were mandated for the safety of the public and the CTC crew.
Every ferry crew consists of a captain and a deckhand, both essential to the operation. In April of 1988, Kim Monroe, newly arrived on Chebeague, learned that the CTC was hiring to fill a deckhand position.
I mean, we're the lifeline to the mainland. We handle emergencies of all kinds, not just the rescue, but we've taken over emergency trips for dogs that have been hit by cars, or people in labor that didn't need to call an ambulance, but they needed to get over in the middle of the night. Many things like that.
While ferry service is vital to islanders needed to travel to the mainland, it also has become increasingly essential for many coming to work on the island. Each day, dozens of people employed by island businesses, the school, the island commons, as well as contractors of all trades travel via the ferry to get to and from their jobs on Chebeague. With more than 140,000 people traveling each year, it is not surprising that occasionally things are left behind. Very little surprises Kim Monroe.
Someone forgot their daughter at Cousins Island, sleeping in the freight shed on the last boat. And we got halfway, we got to the red buoy, and all of a sudden she's like, "Oh my God, my daughter's sleeping in the shed." And we turned around and went back and got her. She was very mad at her mother.
Over the years, Kim fielded a few odd questions.
Someone who came at high tide and came back the next day and was all indignant and came up to me on the boat and asked me what I did with all the water.
In unusual rescues.
When we were frozen all the way across, we rescued a duck that got frozen in the ice, his legs frozen, and we had to use a shovel to break the ice and pick him up and put him in the boat and melt the ice to free him, and then we released him afterwards.
For first-time visitors, how you get to Chebeague can be something of a mystery, and the person asked to explain the curious process is often one of the CTC bus drivers, including Alan Small. Over the many years he transported passengers to the Cousins Island Wharf, Alan says the first question he usually is asked is,
"You want to know if they're pronouncing the town right?"
And his answer, of course, was Chebeague.
It is possible that CTC is another type of lifeline, renewing friendships with summer islanders, discussing local politics, comforting a grieving islander, explaining that your dog is actually nice, carrying bags for someone, complaining about the ferry being late, asking for a ride home. All types of interactions that are virtually impossible without the ferry.
In November 2020, Matt Ridgway became the general manager of CTC. Matt had joined the CTC in 2013 as a ferry captain.
Yeah, so my family and I had just moved out to the island a couple weeks before the job opened up, and I have worked since I graduated from college in the maritime field, pretty much exclusively on boats, and to have an opportunity to work within the community on board the ferry with what I thought and still think is one of the most important jobs to support this community was just a great opportunity. And to be able to do it so close to home was just an added bonus.
With Ridgeway's hiring, the CTC board saw the opportunity to continue the professionalization of the company. CTC currently employs 27 people, 8 of them full-time, and the remainder part-time.
We've got a really strong group of people that have kind of developed over the past 10 years. A lot of people that have stayed with us for a long time, and the employees, I think, are really the ones that make the company.
High priority has always been given to CTC's role in transporting island children to school on the mainland.
The school, I think people on the island view that as a backbone of the community, and it's really important that we are able to provide reliable service for school kids so people can continue to live here year-round. I think some evidence of how we prioritize that is we actually run more trips in the winter time than we do in the summer. We add 2 trips specifically to transport the students over. We run the late boats. We run a lot of empty trips in the winter time, but those trips are there so we can continue to provide the transportation that families and school kids may need to participate in stuff outside of the regular school day, like sports and different clubs and so forth.
CTC's growth is limited by a variety of operating restrictions, some dating back 50 years. They result legal challenges brought by Yarmouth over access to and the use of Cousins Island Landing. Discussion to ease or eliminate some of those restrictions are ongoing with the cooperation of the town of Chebeague Island. Today, the mission of CTC remains what it was since the company's founding.
So our mission is to support the community by providing safe and reliable transportation and to and from Chebeague Island, and that includes the whole transportation system. So it includes the ferry, it includes our shuttle buses, it includes our parking lots, and it includes our barge service. And that's really our sole purpose, is to support the community by doing what we know how to do and what we're good at.